Okay, thanks for coming back. Next thing to do is we're going to make our game really fun by adding a bad guy for the game. So what we're going to do is, first thing we're going to do is make a little place for him. And so I'm going to make another platform. And this time I'm going to make the platform from scratch. Okay, sort of starting out from the way things are when you start out your platform here. You usually have a circle tool, and this is set up as free motion. So let's create a rectangle just like this, and we'll draw a rectangle for our platform, roughly the same size. And then let's make it look like a platform, decorate it a little bit. Now I wanted to show you something about these textures that are a little different depending on what kind of a shape you have. This coin is a circle, and this player is a square. Now if I were to scale by dragging the handle, you can see that the texture scales right along with the shape. That's different from rectangles, polygons, and ramps. Those will not scale. Those textures will not scale, they will tile. So you can see here as I drag the corner of this platform, the texture will tile and repeat. So the same thing happens here. If I choose, let's choose something appropriate for a platform, and you can see here I've got this grassy platform, and you can see it tiles. It doesn't tile well vertically, but does tile well horizontally, so I can make it long, short, and it looks pretty good. So I'm going to turn off this outline, and now it really looks good. So that's our first platform, and if I click test, whoops, it falls. The reason for that is, and I'm sure you noticed this in the beginning, that I changed this to free motion. That's going to be your default, so keep in mind that you're going to, depending on whether you're creating something that can move around freely, like your player, where it's appropriate, you're going to want to change things that are still in your game to static motion. So now if I click test, I can score my point and I can land on this platform no problem. It doesn't fall down. Oops. Okay, now for the baddie. Let's go ahead and drag this bad guy onto the stage, and we'll scoot him down and do a quick test. And now we have a bad guy who's sort of moving back and forth randomly, but he's constrained to the platform. And if I touch him, really nothing happens. Reason being is I think I haven't set up all my layers for my player correctly. Let's go ahead and sort of dissect this guy, this bad guy, and look at what he's set up as. This is the prefab again. So what we've got here is collision layers all. So he'll collide with everything in the game that's on a collision layer. He's set up as a pass-through layer, so he doesn't collect coins or other objects if he touches them. In this case, he won't. He's only set up for the diamond layer for the sensor layer. So as far as sensors, he'll only receive a sensor event if he touches something that's on a diamond layer. So let's go look at my player. And he's not on the diamond layer, so let's go ahead and do that and see if something happens when I try it now. So now I collected my coin, which was on the club layer, and a little bit of lag there because I'm recording. Now that I touched the bad guy, he was removed. Also, I lost a life. Let's test that again real quick. So, collect my coin, lost a life. There we go. So let's look now, how did that happen? Well, a sensor event was fired on the diamond layer, and if we look at the actions panel here, we can see that on sensor, two things happen: lose life and remove. Now, it's interesting, you think, well, if I click lose life on the bad guy, won't he lose a life? Well, it doesn't really work that way. All of these events are global. Basically, score is just global. It just occurs for the game. Penalties occur for the game. Lose life occurs for the game. So if you lose a life, you're basically just losing a life, and it applies to the player. All these apply to the player. The first four, sort of the game state. So if I look at goals for my game, I can adjust what actually happens. So if I wanted to make it so that I could get 3 penalties and then I lose a life, I can do that, and I could set up instead for this bad guy, I can set up instead of losing a life immediately, I could assign a penalty. And then I'll click test, and I got a penalty. You can see right up in here, I got 1 penalty, and if I get 3, I'll lose a life. So that way I could get, if I hit 9 bad guys, then I'll lose the game. Now let's look at what else is attached to this guy. We've got a couple of modifiers. Right here we've got, this is, if I look at my widgets, widgets are basically things that automatically actions that happen in the game. So you don't actually have to do anything. They will just automatically start looping or occurring in the game. The computer will handle those things. So this is an elevator, and basically I've turned it on its side. So basically instead of going up and down, the guy is attached to an elevator going side to side. He is an elevator, basically. And then the second thing that I've added here is hard to see, but it's a switcher. And a switcher here is you can use in conjunction with an elevator or a motor to switch the direction randomly. So if he was rotating on a motor, it would switch rolling back and forth randomly, and being on an elevator, he'll switch back and forth randomly. So that makes him look a little more alive and also a little more unpredictable, so you can actually make him do things, and it makes it a little more challenging to time things when you're going to try to jump on this platform, maybe to reach another objective. So let's, finally, since we did this with the prefab, let's go ahead and make a new bad guy from scratch. So, as soon as this wakes up, okay, there we go. Let's make this bad guy slightly different shape. And let's give him a look and feel like a bad guy. Let's make him look, give him a dangerous color here. And we'll give him 1 eye, because that's his name. That's his name, he's 1 eye. Okay, so there's our bad guy, new different looking bad guy. And let's go ahead and click test and see what happens. We haven't really done anything to him yet, but let's see. Well, not very bad. Okay, next thing we're going to do is make it so if we touch him, something bad happens. So we'll turn him into a hazard in the game. So let's put him on, I believe the last one was on the diamond layer. Let's do that. And then we will assign an action. So the sensor event will be penalty and remove. So when this sensor event fires, we'll get a penalty if we touched him, and he'll be removed. So so that it looks a little more realistic, and we know that something happened to him. If we kept him in the game after that, we wouldn't know if he was still dangerous. One thing to note is sensor events between 2 of the same objects only occur once in the game. So if I undo that remove and I click test, basically I got that penalty, but now he is not dangerous anymore. You can see that, because the interaction between this guy and this guy only happens sensor-wise once. So let's turn that back on, remove, so that we know it's a little more obvious in the game that something has happened and something won't hang around that isn't dangerous anymore. So there we go. We got a penalty. So now let's make him look a little more alive instead of just sitting there. I mean, he could be a plant for all we know. So let's make him look a little more like an animal and make him look alive. We'll drag the elevator on him. And now by default, it's up and down. If I click here now, he's moving up and down. We don't want that to happen. We want him to be moving side to side. So if I click on this elevator, I move the 2 endpoints. I like to keep it so that the endpoints still are in the middle of the object. So the middle is still right in the middle of the object. It makes the motion a little more stable. But then I could sort of drag it around the whole thing if I wanted to adjust the position. Now if I click test, now we've got a bad guy who's moving around like a real platformer game, except he's very predictable, right? I know he's going to be there at that time, so I can easily avoid him. But if I add one more modifier, the switcher, and put it on there, now we've got, oh, see, he's a little more shifty. Okay, there we go. He's a real challenge for a bad guy now, at least for me. Okay, so now we've created a bad guy. What we did was, quick review, we created a shape, made it look dangerous, then we added to a sensor layer, and quickly we added, for the sensor event, a penalty and remove. That was basically it. And then we just added a couple of motion controls to make it a little more interesting. It's that simple. Thanks for watching.